Hey guys,
Hello,
welcome to the
hello.
tavern. What was that? Now we're like, okay, hey guys, welcome to the tavern.
We're
We
live, and we're live now.
no,
Uh,
right. So we've developed a studio per type of performance now where we have a tech guy that does all of our live, and he told us the wrong time this time. So it's all right, guys. This is Tavern Talks. This is a small stream where we just enjoy talking D&D with guests, creators, other game masters. And tonight we've got a really interesting one. Tonight we have Hunter. Hunter, from what I know personally, is the current sole provider of uh, Warlocks and Waffles, which is a stream that goes during the day when everybody else is working. I've tried to log in many times at work. My office will not allow me into Twitch. And every once in a while, I can throw it up on my phone, but it doesn't
yeah,
ever work.
I
But
would say like probably 80% of our viewers are like have it in one ear and are just
right,
listening to it while they're doing other things.
yeah,
Yeah,
which is great though, because I mean,
yeah,
it really puts you more in like a, I'm not saying a rude thing, but it more puts you in more of like a podcasting level because
sure,
you're
yeah.
listening rather than watching.
Yeah, and
Um,
we've marketed it as like an RPG morning show.
oh,
But
nice.
then it's too late in the morning to really be a morning show. But I don't like being awake in the morning, so
No, I
10
completely,
a.m. is about as early as I'm willing to be on stream.
yeah, no, that I can accept. Yes. You've got to have your beauty sleep. You got to get up. You got to do your makeup. You got to get ready to go.
Hmm.
And apparently, you have to redo your room every day to get that wonderfulness of what it is behind you.
Absolutely, yeah. I
Yeah.
every night I pack this away in a little duffel bag, and then I get up in the morning and reassemble it.
So that's the thing is, if it was my room, I would have to do that because my
Sure.
wife would murder me
See,
otherwise.
a lot of people see my setup and they go, "Oh, that's cool. He has a whole room that's like really big and cool."
No,
I'll give you a little behind the scenes thing here.
you're just
This is a
sitting at a
closet.
wall. Oh, okay.
This is a closet, and I am creative with my framing.
Hey, it is what it is. There's nothing wrong with that. So you can just shut the door and that whole area goes away in the house.
Yeah, basically.
That works wonders. That's perfect way of doing things. I actually thought about restructuring my desktop so that just the back wall would be that way, and then I could just
Hmm.
mess up the back wall, and then everything else would look normal. But besides that, you're a game master, a
I am
full-time game master, from what we've
full
talked before,
full time.
full
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
So
It's a wild ride.
for all of our viewers out there, how many games is that normally?
Oh boy. It depends on the week. I usually am
Okay,
averaging about 5 to 6 weekly like games that are playing every week.
right.
And then I fill in the rest of the schedule with like some one shots. Some like some people are playing once a month, other people are playing like every other week, whatever works for their schedules.
Right.
So I usually end up at a between like 10 to 12 games a week, depending on how busy the week is. Sometimes I have like only a handful of games and I'm like, this is the height of luxury. I have a whole night off. Other days I'm like, I have run 3 games every single day of this week and I'm slowly dying. I try
Okay,
and avoid
so
that if at all possible.
right. So that's where the interesting thing comes from. Now, I do admit that if you had only doing that, it would be a lot different.
Mhm.
For me personally, I've tried to do more than 3 games a week, and
Sure.
I started losing my mind, like
Yeah.
100% mind lost. And part of that was, though, is that I work a 40-hour job during the day.
Hmm.
I have 3 crazy kids, and at 9 o'clock I have to stream, and now or I'm running a game.
Right.
All my stuff is done after 9 o'clock because of all my kids. But what I realized is I started blending my worlds,
Hmm.
because one was done closer to Tomb of Annihilation style,
Sure.
one was uh, one was Horde of the Dragon Queen, one was Gooey Cute. I was like,
Hmm.
I couldn't figure out how to parse that.
Yeah.
Any tips, tricks on how to parse 13 games a
See,
week?
I'm I'm the wrong person to ask because I've been informed that I'm an insane person. Because what I do, the way, because I tried to do that, I tried to have all the games separate and keep it all,
Yeah,
and it's difficult. It's
it
difficult to
is.
keep everything separate. You have to be very intentional about all of your notes, and
Yep.
like I have one Google account that I can't
It,
even go into anymore because the Google Docs is just page and page and page and page of random campaign notes, and I'm like, I
yeah.
could never begin to sort through all of that.
Right.
But the what I
Is
do
there any
now,
like applications or things that you would suggest to people like, hey, if you're building these things,
oh
this might be
boy.
something you would want to look into?
I have we interviewed Legend Keeper at one point
Okay.
on the show. They're super cool.
Hmm. I've not heard of them.
They're pretty cool. They advertise themselves as like a wiki for your home world or your home game world,
Nice.
but designed with the like there's other platforms out there that do that,
Yeah,
but
I mean, there
it's
was a big
intentionally
one.
designed for like if you are somebody with like ADHD or something like that, it allows you to build it out how your consciousness
Brain makes
works
sense.
and like do
Yeah.
it in the order that works for you, as opposed to like, okay, you need to do this and then this and then this. So
Yeah.
they're cool. I
I mean, there's the old
my
school
notes,
World Anvil. That's like the
World
big one that
Anvil, yeah.
everybody knows.
um
Um,
my brain works in crazy and chaotic ways, so really mismatched and mishandled Google Docs
yeah,
is the best
no,
I can do. um
I
but
use
I
OneNote, so it's very
OneNote
similar to Google
works, yeah.
Docs. It seems to be,
um
uh,
the thing that is absurd about the way that I run my games is that I run a an open living world across all of my games. So all of my games are taking place in the same world
okay.
simultaneously. And the things that they do in their games can ripple over and affect other people's games, never in a never like they're going to destroy your game or
Epic
something like that.
issue
Yeah.
like of game, but it's
um
little things can,
there have been groups that like very much in the same mindset as like Loki, like the
yeah,
show of like, okay, well, you're gonna be moved to your own timeline because you're a chaotic force of disaster.
yeah, you can't be at the
But
same, you can't be here. I'm sorry.
yeah, it works well with the way that my brain works to be
Yeah,
able to be like, okay, well, I don't need to keep track of all of these different like versions of my timeline. I just need to keep track of what is happening right now, and
which makes
all of these
sense.
games are happening across that. Where it gets tricky is that then it causes chaos across my board, and like this group over here is doing something that is going to have major ramifications on this group,
Right.
or this group goes to do a quest, and by the time they get there, the quest has been solved already because another group got to it.
Oh no.
Um,
And
but like,
you've actually tortured players for that by doing
well,
that?
a lot of my players really enjoy the in-depth like living world aspect
Okay.
of it, of like, so they can go and they can do their thing, and they know that that thing is not only going to have repercussions on themselves, but it may have repercussions on other
Right.
people's games as well. It also tends to hold people to like a, because they know that this may have repercussions on other people other than like themselves and the other players in their game.
Right.
It holds them to, they're a little bit better behaved, I find, because they're like, well, I don't want to ruin anybody else's game. But at the same time, sometimes they'll do something and they're like, oh, Hunter's other players are gonna hate me. Like I have one group that there was like an ancient lich who had been like locked away and imprisoned deep under the
Right.
mountain. And one of my groups woke him up and freed him on accident,
Oh no.
which caused like, there's a whole section of my map that is just encased in this dense fog, and like there's undead running amok in there, and like
Right.
it's a horrible nightmare zone that nobody else should ever go
Nobody else
to.
wants to go to, but
Yeah, those players are wonderful. One of them, the one that woke up the lich, is in our actual play on Monday nights.
oh, there you go.
So yeah, he's a blast. I love him dearly.
Yeah. So yeah, so that's an interesting conversation for another time because the living world
Absolutely.
idea is something I
We
really am excited about
we could dive into that
because
in depth.
Well, the reason is because we've been looking at ways to bring the Misfits community
Mhm.
together on Discord and do a living
Yeah,
world on Discord, but allow that living world to both affect and change not only what's going on in Discord, but what's going on stream.
sure.
That's the next thought. We don't know how we're going to do
Interesting.
it yet. We're
Yeah,
interested in doing. I know another company
that's a
that
fun
does it.
project.
I know another company that does it, and they do it very well. But I think we can do it differently and get a lot larger of a community base, because all of our stuff in D&D right now, all of our stuff within the Misfits is based out of the GUI Cube community.
Mhm.
And with the GUI Cube community already having 600 to 800 people in it that don't get a chance to play those characters that they've either had portraits done for or like found characters they really have enjoyed playing, I think that would give us a different spin on things, and I think it'd
Sure.
be exciting. But it's just putting all those pieces together, figuring out how to connect it into a application like D&D Beyond or something where people can store all those different character sheets, and then finding, of course, game masters who'd be interested in running
Absolutely.
those worlds and being
That's the
able to
thing.
communicate back and forth
Yeah.
with either myself or other higher level game masters that are following the overarching story
Mhm.
to make sure that nothing is going completely out of whack.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, that's a different
It's a
different
different
conversation,
topic. Yeah.
different topic.
Yeah.
Tonight we're
Um,
talking about
pe- people have referred to it as weaponizing my ADHD. That like it's all gonna be happening in my head anyway, so I might as well use it.
hey, I mean, I'll admit I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I come up with a concept and like, this is great. I like this concept. And it's going to base a little bit off of what's happening in the actual campaign that we're running. And then I'm like, yeah, but this concept actually works better over here. And we'll just flop these ones. I'm just like, well, this is how this goes. And our tech guy is actually, he plays in my Thursday game, and he can tell you that that game has gotten extremely intense at times. And I like to toy with my players. Everybody's backstory will be touched when we play, in ways most of the time that they don't expect.
Sure.
One of our characters, she was a fighter. She had lost her family to a dragon, and I started playing Fate with her. And I was like, "Hey, would you be interested in actually succeeding at what you wanted to do?" And they were like, "Well, yes. Why?" I was like, "Well, how much would you be interested?" Mind you, she didn't know that her family was not able to actually have children, so they plotted with a hag to get a child, and then she found
Mm,
out 16 or 17 episodes later she was actually Hexblood, and she got all these new
interesting.
abilities, and now she's got the hag that's tracking her, and
Yeah.
it's a night hag, so it comes out in the middle of nowhere all the time.
I love hags.
Hags are so
They're
so much
so much
fun.
fun. I'm a big fan of like pairing a hag with like some trolls or an oni or something like that.
Yeah,
Like oh man,
yeah,
I had a hag villain for a while that had two onis that worked for her and would just like go out and kidnap people in the middle of the night to
yeah.
bring to the hag. Like
Yeah.
oh
My
man,
favorite creature for a hag, and I know it's so typical because it's actually written in
uh-huh.
the monster manual. The Banderhob is so mean, so
I
mean, and I
I
love
love
it
a Banderhob though.
because it's not
They're
it's
such a
not a
wild like they're out
well,
of left field.
right, exactly. And you think it's just this random like frog monster, right? And then you find out it's like a perfect assassin. Like, it
Hmm.
steals things easily and then takes off. Like, what?
Yeah. They're so creepy looking
Oh
too.
God, yeah.
If you're in the chat and you've never you don't know what a Banderhob is,
You need to look
Google
that
it.
up. Yeah,
They're horrifying.
they're horrifying.
I believe if memory serves, the official art has like an arm hanging out of its mouth of
It
like a
does.
full person.
Yeah. So that's the thing is they are literally developed by hags in order to do missions of either assassination or kidnapping.
Hmm.
And I think that's what happened was the Binderheld was just kidnapping whatever the hell it was to bring it back to the hag.
Sure.
But or it was eating it. eh, you figure that out. But uh, so chaos, right? And
Chaos. It's what I'm known for.
improv, right? Because
Hmm.
D&D, depending on the person, and we've talked a lot about this, is you can prep certain things, and
Sure.
then you have to kind of be able to just think on your feet.
Absolutely.
What would you suggest, though, to prep so that you have that opportunity to think on your feet? Or do you just, I'm going
Oh
to improv
boy.
everything?
Um, there are
Uh,
um there are a lot of things that you can do. Most of them are uh going to involve going to a like an improv class or something like that, just to get a basic on improving. But like you can, what I do is I prep a lot of like potential paths.
okay. So you
And
you you prep the encounter or the scenarios.
Right.
Okay.
And there's like there's a method of doing it that's like a bottle. Like there's the entrance, and like everybody's going to enter at this point. But then
Right.
there's more room in the middle for them to go around, and then I know where it's going to end roughly. Like I know the direction in which I'm sending that story. I don't know what section of that it's going to end up hitting, but like it's going to hit somewhere in that direction.
Right.
And so the that's sort of the mindset I always enter into prepping games with, is
Okay.
like I'm I have ideas of elements I want to put into there, but like the story doesn't have to follow a direct path through any of those elements. They don't have
Hmm.
to interact. There's elements that they don't need to interact with entirely. If you're prepping a story and you have like elements that you're making that you want them to encounter, separate them into like, these are elements that I definitely want them to encounter, and these are elements that I will be okay with losing.
Right.
And
No,
and
I
then
completely
and
agree.
then look at your list of ones that you said these are ones that I really want to happen, and choose some of them that you're okay with losing. Because if you're going to, especially if you're playing with a group of chaos people,
Right.
you have to be okay with the fact that that story may end up nowhere near where you intended it to.
Oh, 100%. I
um
completely agree.
yeah.
I think it's interesting though, and I don't know if you've had this experience or not, and
Mhm.
it sounds like you might have had this experience similar to what mine is. And that is when you move the game from being a at the home friends only tabletop game to
Mhm.
a professional tabletop game, people like to follow those hooks
Sure.
because they know that those hooks will lead to whatever the story is they want.
Absolutely.
And I've also been really good. It's taken me years and years to figure it out that, if you don't want a hook to be launched, just don't tell them the hook. Like,
Yeah.
because a lot of
Yeah.
times you get excited and you want to tell everything that's going on. But sometimes when you tell everything that's going on, you then leave things that you're like, oh crap, I have nothing planned for this. Like,
Sure. The most effective hooks are the ones that they never saw coming.
right,
If you give a player a chance to see the hook before they're on it, 9 times out of 10 they'll just assume it's a trap and avoid it. They're gonna look at it and go, "Oh, that looks like something the GM wants me to do, and the GM is my enemy, so I will go this other direction." Um, I've had games where I've intentionally left several plot hooks out of like, look at these things that you could go do, because I know that the players are going to run away from anything I put in front of them, and that's what I want them to do. I'm 4 steps ahead of them and they'll never see it coming.
and then they see it coming and they're
And
like,
then
shit.
eventually they'll see it coming, and it's like, okay, well, I'll change
Uh,
my strategy up.
I mean, good.
Flexibility is real big.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Flexibility is really a big thing. So back to the idea of improv. So what then, if you've got the scenario set,
Mhm.
what is the main focus of your improv then?
Who? I would say the main focus for me is building on ideas that the players create.
Okay.
So I make a very basic um like I put very basic elements into place. And then I wait to see what elements the players latch onto and what the
Mhm.
players think is important. One thing that I do at the beginning of every session I run is I will ask one of the players to recap what happened last time.
Right.
And the reason I do that is one, I run a lot of games and it's very easy for me to forget things.
Right. You're like,
Um,
oh, this is where we're
yeah.
at now.
Oh, that's right. Because also, like
Yeah.
when I prep out a game, I've got things like points where I'm like, okay, I could end it here, here, or here for
Right.
tonight. And depending on where it ended, it may not have been at a point where I
I
was
feel
like
like personally, that's
blocking
when I
that away.
improv the most is like, okay, we're getting close to the end of the night. I want to end on a cliffhanger of some
Sure,
sort. Where do I put this? And
sure,
it's always improv. It's like, okay,
yeah.
we're here. Oh, this will work. I can do this, and then just tie it into the next big thing next
hmm
week. Uh,
The recap is helpful though because like it helps me know where we're at. But more importantly, it helps me know what from that last session the players thought was important.
okay,
So they'll look at it, and I've had games that have drastically changed course because the players sat down and they recapped and they were like, yeah, and then we saw Joe, and Joe is clearly the villain of this campaign, and we will hunt him to the ends of his days. And it's like, okay,
Joe was
Joe was a random farmer you met who sold you your horse, and you didn't like how much you had to pay for that. Let's see here. What can I do with Joe?
what can I
Um,
torture you with
yeah.
Joe now?
How is Joe gonna come up later?
Right.
The and so
I
knowing
like
what
that. I
the
like the way
knowing
that you
yeah,
can do that.
like taking what the player, because then the players are invested. You don't have
Right.
to, because no amount of writing from a GM can get the players to hate a character as much as the players deciding that they hate that character. So if you're looking for a like an NPC for your players to hate, make a few NPCs that all have like a different trait that is probably not
Right.
great. And see which one
See
of
which
them
one
the players go,
bites.
that one is our nemesis, and we will destroy them. Um, that is, it's a very effective system.
Oh yeah, no,
Because
100%.
you're baiting, you're putting the stuff out there and seeing where the bites land.
Yeah.
But it also means that because the players are driving that story, you are playing off of them, so
Right.
you're not deciding something and then reacting to the choices that they've made
Right.
within your story to fix your story and get them back on track. You make the basic groundwork for them to play on top of, and
Right.
then as they play and they make choices, you build around what they're trying to do. um it's one of the reasons that I run a lot of like very role play heavy theater of the mind games,
Mhm.
is because like maps are great, but in a
They
game where
do
I'm trying
kind
to
of
right, in a game
corner
where I'm
you.
trying to encourage my players to make the choices to move the story forward, a
Right.
map limits that because inevitably when I put a map down in front of a group of players, they're going to go, okay, well, what is in this chest? And it's like,
Right.
I don't know. Let me roll something.
Yeah.
40 gold. Why not?
Yeah.
Like, uh, as opposed to if I'm like, okay, well, what are you looking for? What are like I'll describe the basics of the room, and they'll be like,
Right.
well, you said there was a rug in the room, right? I want to check under the rug to see if there's like a trap door being hidden there. There wasn't before, but that's a great idea, and it'll move the story forward in a cool way. So let's make
Right.
a trap door there, and it fits with the story. If it doesn't fit with the story, that's fine. You don't
Yeah,
have
there's
to
no
say
trap door, but
right.
you
You
know,
don't
there
have to say
could be.
yes to everything.
Yeah.
But like if it fits with the story and it's like, yeah, this guy was like he has secret doors all over this dungeon. Why wouldn't there
Right.
be a trap door in this room?
Yeah. And where does
Um
that trap door lead? Well, we don't
right.
know. Let's find out, you
Absolutely.
know.
And you can do fun things with that. Like
Yeah.
having if you and no one like the memories I have of games are so much stronger for games where like a player did something that like was off the beaten path. Like it was an
Right.
optional thing that they went off and did,
Oh yeah.
and it ended horribly. And then they all like head back to the main trail with their tails between their legs, and they're like,
Right.
"Oh, we shouldn't have done that." Those are the games that I remember very fondly as a player. Because I remember games where the rogue would go off and do something, and it got us into a whole extra fight that we didn't need to be in. But like it was fun and it was chaotic and it was not necessary. It didn't feel like we were being forced down a path.
Right.
And so
I can see that.
that's always what I strive for in my games. Mm.
Yeah, so that's interesting because a lot of these things are very similar things that I deal with when I play, both
Mhm.
as a player and also as a, or not as a player, but as a game master and also as a streamer, because I feel a lot of times in our stream the same thing comes up a lot. Uh-oh, what happened? I vanished. Why did I vanish?
Invisibility.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, I did. What the hell? Anyway, I'm here, guys. I promise. No. Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's where I'm going. But yeah,
Haha, I
so
have the top screen right now.
he
Ah,
does. He
I
has the
have
top
claimed
screen.
victory over the stream. Hello everybody in the chat. How's everybody doing?
Hmm.
Fwifo, always a pleasure to see you, my friend. Dan, hey, how you doing? Long time no see. It's been exactly what, 2 days? Miss you already.
Hey, we're
Um,
back.
there you
Look
are.
at that. All right,
Welcome.
cool. I'm back.
Now
See
the
what
question is,
happens.
am I still on top? Because
No, you are.
that
You're
would be
still on
very
top
entertaining.
until
Excellent.
our. Yep,
Oh
and now
no!
you're back.
Oh no! I have been displaced. Oh man. Uh,
But
uh
we are
but
definitely yeah, so I was saying is a lot of times my games are like that, but then also the stream is like that
yeah,
because I try to let the stream be as originally
sure,
D&D as possible.
sure.
But I do know.
But it is also very different in a streaming format versus
Mhm,
a home game, right? Where
right.
a home game, if nothing really happens in a home game, and it's like it turns into like a shopping episode or something like that, or the players
Yeah,
go off and do some nonsense. Like that's fun in a home game.
right.
If I was sitting down to watch a stream and it was 3 hours of the players not really doing anything,
Yeah.
that's not an entertaining
I mean,
stream.
sadly, unless it's Critical Role where 65,000 people will watch an entire session of people shop. Like,
I will say though, I watch if I'm watching a Critical Role shopping episode, what I'm really watching is Travis slowly wringing the life out of his
Lord.
tankard as he's just waiting for it to be doing anything else.
Oh yeah, 100%. I completely agree. You do. It's funny because there are those same personalities, and after watching now 3 different seasons worth of shows,
Mm-hmm.
where those same personalities come out in every one of their characters,
Yeah.
no matter who they're playing.
I'm a bad fan. I didn't finish
I finished
campaign
2.
2,
I've
and
never watched 1.
I've watched like 3 episodes of campaign 3.
I'm
I
not
have
getting into
so
3 at
I have
all.
so little time
Yeah,
for. I've heard Travis's play. Like I've heard things about some of the characters where like I do want to see that. I should watch this, and then I'm like, I don't have an extra 4.5 hours a week to watch somebody else play D&D.
right. I really I've went podcast mode on D&D now for shows like
Mhm.
that. I listen to them, surprisingly enough, I listen to it at the gym, or I listen to it on the way to work or coming home from work, or I throw the speakers on while I'm at work and my coworkers are like, another one? I was like, yes, shut up and listen.
That's what I do with
So
like Dungeons and Daddies.
Yeah, that's
Like,
a good one.
oh man,
I've only
I love
watched
them dearly.
I listened to them for a good 10 or 12 episodes and then kind of fell back off the road again.
I hear that a
Um,
lot from people of like specifically with Dungeons and Daddies of like they listened for a handful of episodes and they were really into it and then they like something happened and they forgot to go back to it.
yeah. I do the same thing with Critical Role a lot of times. I do the same. The one I'm really following right now, and part of it is because uh, I really have a lot of respect for the GM, and
Yeah.
he puts a lot of focus on storytelling. Is Jason Azevedo from Realmsmith? They're a
Okay.
Canadian-based campaign,
Yeah.
but they have such a crazy. Not to mention, when you've got $10,000 of Dwarven Forge on a screen every single time you play,
Mm-hmm.
like, man, there's something about that. I'm just like, this is what I'm going to watch because I'm going to
You're
watch this.
you're watching it more out of envy than anything else.
Yeah, partially yes. And the other part with it is though is like they actually have done it right where you can see the world.
Sure.
The only thing I don't like about Critical Role is when they go into combat, it's this big, like I can't see the map at all. I can't see anything the characters are looking at. I'm just like, I want to see the giant map that you just built because it took so much time and energy probably for you to
Mm-hmm.
build this damn thing, and I really enjoyed it. Let's see it. I'm trying to keep up with the chat at the same time, but I also get intense just with the show. So
uh Yeah, I do love like a well done actual play. I just have so little time. So
right,
if the like if it doesn't grab me right away, I don't
you
have. If it does grab me, I will listen to nothing else until I have finished it.
until
Uh
I finish. Yeah,
yeah.
there's
Uh
a like I said, because there's a couple game masters out there, and I'm like, they're great, but like
mhm,
I can't watch you. I don't know
sure.
why. They have great the storytelling, they have great
Hmm.
energy, but I'm like, there's something about this I just can't get into.
Sure.
David B. Walters is a big one for me. I don't like his style. I think
Hmm.
he's an amazing game master. He tells great stories. I can't get into his style at all. Tried.
Which cast is that?
Uh, he's done a couple.
Okay. The name is
He does the
unfamiliar to me.
vampire one. He
Oh,
does
okay.
the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I love vampire. That's
Mhm.
actually like one of the main two different RPGs I got into when I was a kid. But yeah, I don't know. I just couldn't get into them.
Sure.
But
Everybody's style is
everybody's got
different.
yeah, exactly, and that's
Yeah.
why there's 60,000 actual play D&D games now going on
Yeah.
either Twitch or YouTube, and
Mhm.
we can all kind of have a small piece of the puzzle.
Mhm.
But which you guys
Absolutely.
have one. You guys have
We
one
do.
started.
Yeah.
You got what?
Hash browns and hooligans.
Yeah, hash browns and hooligans.
Monday nights we're taking a little bit of time off right now to sort of go over some stuff with characters and like get really nail down some of our mechanics because one of the things we did was we scrapped I scrapped the entire magic system for 5e. So there are no bards, wizards, warlocks, druids, clerics. There is no magic. Magic is dead in this world, but it's slowly beginning to reappear. And it's
So you're gonna
manifesting in more like X-Men mutations.
okay,
And so people have arcane giftings.
okay,
And so in order to use their arcane gifting, they have to spend either hit dice or hit dice worth of hit points in order to like do stuff with their magic. But like then you've got a barbarian who has like
who
wild
can
magic or like
right? Yeah.
one of the rogue has transmutation and can like open holes and things to reach in and grab stuff.
Oh, nice.
There's some cool, and I also made it much more like open ended. Like there are no spells because
Yeah, it's not really
there are no
spells. It's
casters.
what are
It's
you
just
doing
you
with
can
this?
do cool things with magic if you're creative
Right.
enough to do it.
Yeah.
And then I set like a DC that you'll have to reach on your hit die in order to do it. And if it's a high DC, you can spend multiple hit dice to try and
Yeah.
accomplish it.
You could
Which is
also die.
yeah, we are on episode 3. 2 players have knocked themselves unconscious trying to use magic beyond their control already. Nobody's dead yet, but
I mean,
it has
that's good.
happened.
It has happened. Good. Um,
Sam in the chat says, "Cut out half the book there." Yes,
Yeah,
yes, I
yeah. I
yes I
mean, you
have.
did.
It's very fun. I've run a ton of very high magic games, and so I was like, I want magic to be there because I still
Right.
want to be able to play with it.
Yeah.
But I wanted it to be um, less magic reliant, if that makes
Right.
sense.
So here's a
Um,
question, because we're on the whole idea of improv, and this is actually a really good opportunity to do so.
Hope is telling me to knock on wood. No, this is a threat to my players. Here.
So my curiosity with all this is then how do you put it into the mechanics if you're not using actual spells?
For like the magic.
Yeah.
So the way we built around it is that everybody is still like they've still taken their classes, right? So
Right.
there's a in our group there are two fighters,
Hmm.
a rogue, a ranger, a barbarian, and a monk.
Okay.
So all of them still have all of their like class abilities.
Right.
But
I guess I'm more
then
so when you say when they're casting magical
mhm,
spell, they're casting from their
yeah.
arcane gifting. How do you then, if they don't are actually casting spells, but they're
Mhm,
casting magic,
yeah.
how then do you mechanicalize that when you're doing a specific, especially if you're in combat, or let's
Mhm.
say?
So the way we've done it is that they have their hit points. In order to cast magic, they need to either spend a hit die that they have or pull from their hit points directly. And anything that they want to do, I will set a DC that they need to hit in order to do that thing with their magic.
Okay.
If they're like for an example, Roddy, the rogue in our group, tried to open a hole in the roof of a wagon so that he could get into it because the doors in it were locked and he didn't have his
Hmm.
thieves tools. So he tried to open a hole in the roof. I set the DC for it. I told him what it was, and then he takes his hit dice, which for a rogue I believe is a D8, and he rolls that, and then whatever he rolls, the higher the better, as far as like the effectiveness of the magic to do what you are trying to do, but also the more like hit points it is going to take away from you.
Hmm.
For hit dice, it's just a like you have that well of energy, so the higher you roll, the better. When you get into like you're out of hit dice, you can also spend hit points where you're rolling from your hit dice to do stuff with your hit points. Um, this is I can tell that I'm rambling on it. But like
No, no. So I like
for
the
for the
ideas.
rogue, he would take like a D8, he would roll it. He if he rolls like a 7, that's going to be very effective, but it's also going to take 7 hit points away from him. So it's this sort of like weighing the cost versus the reward of using this magic.
Right, which I
Um,
like that. I really think that's an interesting way to do things.
yeah.
Um,
The
maybe I'm not giving the mechanics question the best though. So it's like,
sure.
okay, in combat though,
Hmm.
you know, fireball is a 5d6, right?
Sure.
Or whatever it is. So how, if you aren't using a spell, are you figuring out what dice they're using in order to
So
actually do damage?
so far nobody is using their magic for damage.
Okay, that
The
that that makes more
yeah.
sense now, and that's where that
So
works
like
well.
I one of the things that I did was each of them has a gifting from a specific like school of magic. So like
Okay.
the rogue has transmutation, the ranger has illusion, the monk has divination, the barbarian has wild magic, the uh who am I missing? I'm missing somebody. Oh, the fighter has healing, and then the other fighter has instead of having a like a magic like
Mhm.
spell thing, they have an enhancement, which is very much like an X-Men mutation.
Right.
Their character is blind, and they can spend hit dice to they're a fighter, they took the blind fighting feature, so they have like
Right.
blind sight out to 10 feet from them.
Oh, we've got a
But
daredevil on our hands, huh?
their enhancement is that they can
Yeah.
spend hit dice to expand that and go like full daredevil of like
Yeah.
what is around.
What is around me?
Yeah. So that's I intentionally tried to steer clear of like an evocation gifting that's just going to be sitting there blasting magic at somebody.
Yeah, no,
Um
100%. And
for
that's like I said, that was the curiosity was is
mhm,
if for things that actually could be damageable, what
sure.
is the magical portion of
Yeah.
it? Okay, so not damage now. Now we went to healing. So how do you use a healing dice?
Healing right now, and that's one of the reasons we're taking a couple of weeks off to really fine tune the system.
Yeah.
But as of right now, the way healing works is the person with the healing gifting can pull directly from their hit dice to put those into somebody else. They basically
Okay.
take their life force, roll their hit dice, and put it into somebody else.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah.
But
That makes a lot of
on
sense.
like what does like because that's limited in its capability compared to
Right.
some of the other ones. So that's one of the ones that I'm fine tuning
Have you thought about maybe doing an arcane check in order to enhance that?
potentially, or like a medicine check.
Yeah, or a medicine check,
Like
yeah.
yeah, it's one of those things that we're still
Yeah.
tinkering with it. But that's one of the reasons I love D&D, especially
Yeah.
with my group of players. It's very much a like okay, here's this fun mechanic that we want to play with, but like
Yeah.
we're still figuring out the details of it, and
Right. No, 100%.
at some point we'll have a full like here is how you do it if you want to do it at home
Right.
sort of PDF. But right now it's still in the play testing phase of things.
Nice. No, I completely I like the idea, I really do. And I like the idea that most of your player or all of your players aren't taking advantage of it in a
Mhm.
mechanical way.
That was
And they're
something I was
enjoying it.
yeah. I
They're
was very
enjoying it as
intentional
a
about that
very
in the casting of
yeah.
like making sure that I didn't have any players that were going to be like I'm going to abuse this system.
Yeah, no. That really impresses me of your players too, because they're
Mhm.
all accepting to deal with a game like that. Because a lot of
Sure.
times, and this is where we talked before about the idea that that doesn't work always in just a normal tabletop.
Correct.
But when you're on a performance or you're in a live stream, that kind of thing, you can put those differences and you
Mhm.
can make it feel more realistic and more
Sure.
enhanced. And it also just allows them to just kind of flex their own
Yeah.
descriptives and it allows
It's
them to
much
use
more
their
about
own
their own
creation.
creativity and like you are only limited by what you can think of, sort
Yeah.
of thing. And like as they go, they'll learn better ways to use their different giftings and stuff
Mhm.
like that. An NPC that was introduced at the towards the end of the last episode we did was a character who basically also has one of these giftings, and has told them that like if they can help him with some stuff, he can help them learn how to use their skills better.
Okay.
And so one of the things we're going to be doing over this break here is sort of working on what skills do we want to give these characters. What are maybe there's some things that you can do without expending hit dice. Maybe there's things that you if you do spend hit dice to do them, you do them better than you would normally.
Right.
To give some of that still like magic like
Yeah.
skill.
The feel of the magic
Yeah,
without
and like
actually
gaining control of that
mm,
gift. um
it very reminds me of like a sorcerer's meta magic. Like
sure.
you
Yeah.
can twist the magic and move it in ways that you want to without having to just
Mhm.
have it just the way it's
Yeah.
supposed to go.
Did you ever read the books the Aragon book
Hmm.
series? I was very much inspired by like that style of magic of
Okay.
like magic has to pull from something.
Yeah,
Like you have to
I was
from some
guessing
sort of life
closer.
force.
Personally, I was guessing closer to like Full Metal Alchemist is what I was thinking you were pulling from, but the Aragon
Uh
makes sense too.
yeah. So uh the thought process being like that magic has to pull from somewhere, and
Right.
the more you learn about the thing, and the more like direct you can be to
Hmm.
craft it, the less you have to spend doing it. There's a line in Aragon that has always stuck with me about like it takes far more, anything that you would want to do, it takes the same amount of energy to do it with magic as it would to do it regular, like the physically.
Right.
The ability to start a fire with magic is much simpler if you know how a fire starts, and you
Correct.
like do all of the steps, and then you like you use like the magic to like you're building up the friction, and then you make like a spark or something like that,
Right. So using
is
it, you're
much
doing a
different.
piece of the puzzle rather
Right.
than just
As opposed
puzzle.
to being like snap my fingers and a fully lit bonfire appears,
Yeah.
is a much bigger deal.
Right. Yeah. 100%. Because you're not piecing the puzzle together. You're just doing it. It goes from 0 to 100 instead of 60 to 65% is what you're using the magic for, and the rest of it
Right.
you've already been developing.
Yeah, and if you
Um,
know, if you know and you study that stuff, it gets easier and uh, more powerful, because
mhm.
that knowledge is legitimately power for you.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I like that. I really do. And if I have another 3 to 4 hours in my day, I would love to listen to uh, Hash Browns and Hooligans, and I
absolutely,
might still try to take an episode in just
absolutely.
to listen.
First three
And if
episodes are on our channel and also on YouTube.
there you go, that's how you do that. Uh, Speaking of YouTube, we finally hit 105 subscribers, which means we finally have a custom URL. So I'm super
That's
excited. I
awesome.
no longer am gibberish after the YouTube channel. So that's my only goal. Really, really, our stuff is just to archive to YouTube. Our main focus is Twitch right now. And for people that want to watch it and catch up, that's cool. That's awesome. But really, I just hated the fact that I just had gibberish at the end of YouTube. And I was like, oh, I want to get rid of that. After 100, we were good. So,
That's awesome.
but yeah, no, so yeah, that new link, we're have to update our link now. Oh no. Hey guys, welcome to 25 Games. How you guys going?
Hey,
Thanks for coming over and hanging out. We have Hunter from Warlocks and Waffles, and we're talking about chaos and improv and really just randomness of D&D. And that's kind of where and definitely that's been tonight. Like
yeah,
random
and I
things
mean,
have just been
in a
sparking the
world where
rabbit hole.
they've just announced the Spelljammer is coming to 5e, like you gotta talk about randomness.
Right?
Like,
Yeah.
oh man,
I can
giant
now
space
play the
hamsters are now 5e canon. It's very exciting.
giant space hamsters, Victorian level, or not Victorian, what is it, like French revolutionary hippos with
Yes.
muskets.
Yeah. The plasmoids. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited. It's
I'm curious if they'll leave
I'm a
plasmoids into
huge
it.
I'm a huge fan of like Treasure Planet.
Oh yeah.
And like anything in that genre is very, very good for me. So I'm very excited. I never read Spelljammer.
I
Like
haven't either.
I've never
Like
looked at Spelljammer. I wasn't in the world of gaming when it was a thing. So yeah.
I don't even think like in gaming at all because I was too young to be a
Hmm.
part of Spelljammer.
Yeah.
Because Spelljammer left before third edition came out.
Yeah.
And I started in third and I was like,
Hmm.
well, I never heard of
I
Spelljammer.
I
I had
start
seen things,
yeah.
but
I started with because it's like AD&D
it's a
in
second edition,
yeah. So I started with AD&D because that's what my dad played in high school and college, and he was our first GM. So he
right?
taught us AD&D. So like I learned D&D with Thaco.
Ugh.
But that's where I
I
learned,
played
and then
one game with Thaco and I don't
it's
ever want to go
complicated, yeah.
back.
But then I moved on to I skipped everything from there to fourth edition,
Okay.
which like people give fourth edition a lot of hate. It worked very well for me, because we started playing it towards the end of high school.
Okay.
And so like all of my friends were like moving away and stuff like that.
Hmm.
They were all going off to college and things, so we were playing online. Fourth edition played very well online,
Oh, nice.
because it was more of a like, it almost played more like a tabletop war game.
Yeah.
But yeah, so every that
So that's
that
part
played
of
very well.
there's a reason for that too, right?
Mhm.
Like people don't think about the history of why fourth edition was the way it was. It's because D&D was trying to go back to having a full like miniatures game. That was
Mhm.
what fourth edition was supposed to do, is push that back into D&D. And when it didn't do what they wanted it to do, then they did fifth edition. But there are a lot of things in fourth
I love
edition
fifth
that
edition.
I did not
Fifth edition's very good.
realize that I use because I didn't play fourth, because I went
Mhm.
straight from 3 to 3.5, and then fourth edition was kind of that gap in my D&D gaming where I was either just out of college starting my first job to finally joining the military, and I just didn't have time, right?
Mhm.
And then so coming back into it in fifth, I
Mhm.
was like, oh yes, but I like to use these aspects. Like I've been
Sure.
playing with these for as long as I have, or I've heard people play with
Mhm.
these. I like these aspects. And then we had a guy on our show a couple weeks ago from C4 Labs,
Mhm.
and during the month that they sponsored us, he came on the show and we talked, and he was like, and that was what we were talking about, is what can you take from other games and other
Sure.
editions to make your game better in fifth. And one of the things were like the three different things that we had talked about for that were all part of fourth edition. I was like,
Mhm.
huh, how did I know that? Because I never played fourth. But
Sure.
like
Uh,
skill checks,
skill checks.
thing in fifth edition, but group skill checks is a huge thing in fourth edition.
Yeah. I
um
do. Yeah, I do group skill checks all the time.
yeah.
One thing that I really liked in fourth that didn't make its way into fifth, but is such an easy mechanic to utilize, is minions.
Yeah.
Like they have one hit point. If you hit them, they're gone. You can throw a horde of them at somebody, and they can be wiped out very easily, or they can
Right.
overwhelm the party immediately. Like
Exactly.
they're very fun. If you haven't used a minion, use a minion. They're fun.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun.
Goblins and kobolds make excellent ones.
Goblins, kobolds, skeletons.
Oh yeah,
um
skeleton minions very good.
Yeah. One thing I tell my players this all the time, and one thing I love to do is when they're battling and I want to give them that feeling of they're overwhelmed, right? A lot of times I'll just put a large token with whatever the creature is. And I'm like, you're actually fighting about 60 of these things.
Hmm.
And every time you're swiping through, you're cutting these things down
Right.
slowly and maturely.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it just gives that description. You kind of feel like you're back in the worlds of like, because like I always get a lot of my inspirations from things like, Lord of the Rings,
Hmm.
Diablo, where you're not
Absolutely.
fighting two or three monsters, you're fighting hordes of creatures, and you
Hmm.
want to be that badass. You're just carving through things left and right, flinging body parts on all sides. And then when you come out, you're covered in nothing but blood and guts.
Hmm.
And I love to say that to people, and then they're like, "Yeah, I'm going to go back to the town." And I was like, this will be an interesting conversation for the first person that you talk to.
Yeah. Or they walk in the tavern and they're just covered in
Covered
viscera of
in,
zombies.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And the tavern owner looks at him and is like, "Could you not at least clean up before you come in?"
That's why this is
Like,
why this is why I tell every group at least one caster in your group needs to know prestidigitation.
oh yeah,
It's just the adventurer's shower. Like any before you go into town, just standing
clean
rule
yourself
that
up.
that caster has gone over all of you and made sure that you're not disgusting.
Yeah. But no, I agree. Things like that are just funny. But it's just like if you think about that's what the world we live in D&D is, though.
Hmm.
Most characters don't clean their armor. They don't clean themselves off. They, heaven forbid, they shower.
Hmm.
But
I had a group once that the one wizard had prestidigitation. He had put it in his like sort of character choices that he was a neat freak, and that he was like every night when he would be on watch, he would make sure that he went over everybody's stuff and prestidigitated it so that everybody's like armor, clothes, everything was clean.
Nice.
Um, and it
He
never
forgot one day.
it never got brought up in game. He just told me very early on in the campaign that that's
Right.
something he did every night as part of his like nightly ritual.
Ritual. Yeah.
Like that was something that was just a part of him. Every night he would do this thing. So it never got brought up in the game. And that character died. And so like weeks passed and I started like describing this smell that we all started to smell in the group, and like
And
this
it was them.
this just pervasive rotting stench
Odor, stench. Yeah.
that they had never smelled before, but they couldn't get away from it. It seemed to move with them. They thought they were being haunted, which was very, very funny.
Oh god, that had
um
been hilarious.
and they got into town, and they like went to a temple, and they were like, there's this horrible odor that's following us, we don't know what it is. And he was like, take a bath. And they were like, what? He was like, you reek, take a bath. And I remember very vividly the players looking at me and being like, do we just smell? And I was like, yeah. None of you have ever cleaned your armor. None of you have ever taken a bath or a shower or anything. Like you're
And the
nasty.
guy that
You're
and the guy
disgusting.
that did it is dead.
Yeah, and and they were like, we've never done that. Why is that happening now? And I was like, this character made an active attempt to make sure that none of you ever smelled bad. It was in his
Oh
backstory.
god.
And the player who had played that character had like re-rolled a goblin character who was just a disgusting little gremlin. And so like he had picked up very quickly what was happening and what this smell was that everybody
Right.
was smelling. And so he was dying laughing at the table as everybody else was realizing, like, why do we all reek now? Oh, because the wizard that we
The
chose not
wizard
to have
doesn't
raised
clean
from the
us
dead
anymore.
doesn't clean us.
That's hilarious. Oh my goodness. I oh that's a really that's a really fun little nuance that you got to
Yeah,
play with just because of how things were.
yeah. I'm
Um,
a big fan of like, if you are a player in a game, give your GM some little idiosyncrasies for your character to play
right,
with.
yeah.
Give your like I have one group that has gone through and given me a detailed list of, this is what I do every night before I go to bed, this is what I do every morning when I wake up. And like every once in a while something goes wrong in one of
Yeah.
those two, of like the dwarven barbarian gets up every morning and he's this like grizzled monster of a dwarven man.
Yeah.
But like he takes very good care of his beard. And
Right.
he gets up the one morning and goes into his stuff and he's out of beard balm. And watching this player just go off for the next like 15 minutes of like intense role play as he's just
Yeah.
ripping things apart looking for any backup beard balm, accusing the rogue of stealing what he had left, like going downstairs and just like drinking and sitting at the counter and just
Just grumpy.
brooding,
Yeah,
because
just
this has
brooding.
ruined his morning and it's gonna be all frizzy by the afternoon. And like give your characters idiosyncrasies, give your characters
Yes.
fun little nonsense things,
Yes.
because
For
people
players,
have
listen,
nonsense
listen to
things.
this as players. This is what GMs love to do because we can then bring those idiosyncrasies to the party, and the rest of the
Hmm.
party is not going to realize it until it's given to them.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, we'll keep going a little bit. But so we're at about an hour,
Hmm.
and we've got a decent crowd here. So if you're still here and you're listening, definitely any questions you have specifically on improv or the chaos of the game and how do you kind of run with that,
Hmm.
or you're having players who are not getting excited about characters that you're sending them or whatnot, or as a player, you're having a hard time coming up with that randomness in your own character. Throw those questions up there, and we'll kind of hit those in a random. And for Hope Punk, sure, I want to hear a good one. I don't know what it is, but as soon as you type it out, I'll read it out online, well, let me
Hope,
rephrase that. I most
maybe we'll
likely will
see.
read it out online, but we will see
Hope
based on the content.
Hope Punk is a rascal, so we'll see what they
Yeah, a
say.
rascal, a rapscallion,
A wascally wabbit.
a
Uh,
wethkally webbit.
but yeah,
Yeah.
nonsense is fun. Give your characters nonsense things. Give your characters idiosyncrasies that are um, weird and wild.
Jolly Green 048 says, "How do you remember character voices? He's good at making them, but
mm,
remembering is eh."
uh, yeah,
It's
it's rough.
NPC note cards is probably my favorite way to do it. Um, I try
You
when I
just
do
put
any
like
NPCs,
reminders of like
yeah, just
this is
reminder
what
little
yeah.
things. Most of my NPCs, if they're going to be more than a like 2-second intro,
Mm-hmm.
they'll have at least something that states what their goal is,
Mm-hmm.
what their name is, what their rate, like any little bits of things that might give away who they might be. So maybe they have these weird giant earrings, or maybe they have a horn that's broken, or just little physical features that will give off, allowing them to be different than just the
Mm-hmm.
average everyday that you're walking around and seeing. And it, I try not to do it to everybody though, because then people get into that habit of
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm describing too much, so this guy has to be important.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you're either going to always want to talk to him, or you're going to be like, well, I can mess with the GM and I'll just ignore him.
Sure.
Well, shit.
Um, I I try to if it's an NPC that I'm going to be using a lot,
Mhm.
um, usually either I come up with a voice and then the like I'll go on Hero Forge and make a character that looks like what I'm going for.
Yeah,
Or I'll find character art and then make
voice
a
to it.
voice to match that character. I'm a very visual person, so having
So
that
am
like
I.
visual tie-in is very helpful. For NPCs that I know are going to be a recurring thing, oftentimes I will actually sit down and record myself doing some lines in the
Yeah,
character voice. I'll just save it and then put it in like a folder with the character art of that character so that I can play that back if I ever need
yeah,
to. The actual play makes it super easy because if
yeah.
I
Just
I just go back to whatever I did in that first session when I introduced them.
yeah.
I'm like, yes, that is what they sounded like.
Yeah, no, I
Um,
completely agree, and I'm very similar to you on that one,
mhm.
especially on live play, because I'm like, oh, they could run into this person again. I have no idea what I said for this one. I mean,
I had a also don't be afraid to like admit I don't remember what this NPC sounded like. What
yeah,
anybody remember what they sounded like?
yeah,
Sometimes I can get pretty close based on player description. But I had one NPC that for the life of me I could not remember what they said. And the players didn't really like they had a vague memory that like what I was doing when I introduced the character was wrong, but they couldn't remember what the correct one was.
that's
And so I
funny.
ended up making up a story about how he had gotten in a fight and his throat got cut in the fight, and when they healed him his vocal cords healed wrong, and so now he has a different voice.
There you go. Look at
um
that. That's a way to solve that problem.
uh
Um, wow, there's a
the
lot of talk. Let's see here.
Hope Punk's story is very good. And a player that decided he couldn't read as a result of his int dump stat because he didn't want to play dumb, but he was a caster, so they made him memorize and recite his spells with every level up because he was an auditory learner in character. That's
Little
very fun.
idiosyncrasy on that one, because
I
then
love
you're,
that one.
yeah,
I had an NPC at one point who was a Triton child who didn't know how to read. and then ended up getting the players sort of adopted him, and then they would give him like magic items because they were insane people.
Yeah.
And one of the magic items they gave him was a belt
Hand
of
him
dwarven
random.
kind. Which, if you've never read the stat block for a belt of dwarven kind, one of the features is that you gain the ability to read and write dwarvish. He couldn't read or write common, but magically he knew how to read and write dwarvish because the
Hey,
belt gave it to
sometimes
him.
that's what you need to do. But yeah,
Uh,
no. Let's see here. What else we got?
let's see here.
So Trouble in here says to use an Excel sheet. Perfect
Yes,
example.
Excel sheet is very
Um,
good. If you don't have Excel, Google Sheets works very
yeah,
well.
Google Sheets or Google Docs, and then put a small table in there if you, depending on how you want to organize stuff. And really, those Excel sheets can go with all sorts of craziness. You can put
Mhm.
name, description, attitude, voice.
Mhm.
If you really like to use accents and stuff like that, normally you can kind of trigger those things by knowing what you're going to say. So you could say skittish, or you could say, low toned, high toned,
Mhm.
whatever you want to do.
I take very
Um,
detailed notes about the where the sound is placed in my mouth.
yeah,
Like, is it hard palate, soft palate, front of mouth, back of mouth? Is it
yeah,
like really in the teeth?
yeah,
I also sometimes have like taken pictures of myself as I'm doing the voice because sometimes I have like facial inflection that I'll forget to do, and it changes the
yeah.
sound of the character seat.
So that's a lot of the theater background. I
Hmm.
don't have that skill. Like learning that I have to look like I have to move like how my lips would be moving.
Hmm.
I would have to take a whole entire class on that because I don't understand that. But I'm sure I can
I
figure it
I
out.
did I
YouTube
did
is really good.
I got very into like voiceover. So I did
Yeah,
some audio books and commercial work and stuff like that. And so a lot of that is learning like where sound is because you can have it up in your head, you can
nifty.
have it down in your chest, like and changing
Yeah,
things around like that changes the sound just ever so slightly that you can get like very different sounds out of the same voice.
nice. Yeah, and I think that's really the main focus of a lot of things is being able to do that,
Hmm.
because then you don't have to always be building an accent or a strange way of talking. It
Hmm.
just, depending on how you're shifting your mouth or shifting your the way you're talking, or are you keeping your mouth extremely closed, are you widening it, those types of things.
Hmm.
Like you said, sometimes you have to talk like this where you got all your teeth are just like this and you're
Hmm.
like, but
Hmm.
these are just things that I didn't even realize that I had to do until after I've been doing it now for a year and a half on stream and off stream and all that craziness. Uh, so we've got some requests in here. It says, "Come on, Hunter, break us off some of the mayor." So who is
Oh,
the
oh
mayor?
boy. The mayor is a is a character that appeared in C17R's game, the game that I run for
Okay,
them.
nice.
And um they do they've run into some weird characters, but the mayor is definitely among the weirdest. He is a chaos demon, so he thrives in chaotic locations.
Oh, so he would go really
And
well with tonight's episode.
yeah, but he where they met him, he had basically convinced a small town to like put him in charge.
Mhm.
And then he made sure that everything went correctly for them. But it was all this like very, very scripted, like lawful order for the town. And he was feeding off the chaos of like, that is unnatural. Like that is not how it should be.
Oh,
The absence of like free thought and choice created chaos because it's not how things should
it's
be.
not natural, right?
So like in by enforcing law on everything, he actually was able to feed off of that chaos.
That's crazy.
But
Love
he's
the
this
idea too.
weird like serpentine body with like insectoid arms, big bulbous like alien head.
Yeah.
And he wore a
So I'm
a little
guessing
bowler hat and a bow
fully
tie and
fully
um
customized character right there.
yeah.
That's what that sounds
Um
like. Yeah.
and let's oh man, it's been a while since I've had to do him. Give me 1 second. Uh, ah,
Hello! The mayor talks like this. He's over here, and if you want to do what he wants you to do, then you must follow his path.
He's sort of all over the place.
Yeah.
But he's a fun NPC. Um, Hope says do the Rengar voice, and for the life of me, I cannot remember who Rengar is. So Hope, if you wanna help me out there, I'm happy to do it for you. I am a dancing monkey.
Okay, so
But
while you're being the dancing monkey, Jolly Green 048 says, how do you remember what consequences of one group's actions line up with another group's actions or another group's story?
Oh man. It does get tricky.
I figured
You
that's gonna come with like after story notes and stuff because you're
Yeah.
like, okay,
It's
this
a
could
lot of
connect.
going back and taking notes of like, okay, um, this is how this happened. This
Right.
is what's the logical ramifications
Right.
of that. It's also a lot of I take notes regionally,
Hmm.
as opposed to campaign notes a lot of the time.
Okay.
I'll take campaign notes, but I also do regional notes, so I know like what is happening in the continent,
Yeah.
and um, that's how I take a lot of uh notes for that. Yeah,
So apparently it wasn't a character you used in a
the
show
super
in the
deep grovelly cat from League. The character I did for the League, I ran a game uh for the dev team that makes League of Legends.
Oh wow. That's
And
cool.
we decided to do it as a this weird like out of nowhere like out in the middle of nowhere town but in the world of League of Legends. And so what we ended up deciding to do was that the bad guys for the game were going to be the heroes from the game. And we were going to take those characters and then basically force them to fight the characters they had made. And then while we did that, we also were going to just regurgitate lines that the characters say in the games
Yeah.
just over and over and over again. Um, Rengar, I did not do Rengar. I did. Oh shoot, what was his name? Um, it's a jester in League of Legends. Shaco, yes. So I had him. And he so he would just be like moving around, and I gave him like teleporting abilities, so he's just bouncing all over the
Right.
battlefield. And so he would like appear, and I'd just be like, "Look behind you," and then he would like stab the character. And what was fun about that game was that like none of the heroes in League of Legends have like a ton of lines. So
Right.
it's like 10 lines that we're just choosing from that list and then doing those lines over and over and
Oh
over
my
again
goodness.
in this fight so that they just keep hearing us repeat the same things like it's a game of League of Legends. It was very very fun.
I bet.
I had a ton of fun with it. But yeah, that was actually my first interaction with League of Legends was running for Riot Games.
That's crazy. That'd be an interesting conversation to learn how you got to that level where game companies are coming to you and be like, "Hey, we want to run games. We want you to run the game."
Yeah,
Uh,
it was a wild ride.
yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, it's weird because I've only been doing this for 2 years,
Sure.
and within that time, I've went from professional game master to published writer with GUI Cube, and now I'm
Mm-hmm.
running games on at cons for hundreds of people, and I'm like, this is such a wild ride. Like it's such a crazy off the wall idea that actually works kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And I've met amazing people from it. I've put random people on the show that are way more talented than I am. And uh, Hunter, you have a very great skill with changing your voice very easily with no real change, and you can flip that back and forth very well, which is great.
Thank you.
I've never actually played in any of your games. I want to, just
you're
because
absolutely
we
welcome.
need.
I am happy to run something for you sometime.
Yeah. And it's more so because I think as a game master, if you don't play in other game masters' games, you don't improve.
Yeah.
One of the
things you have to pull things. You have to go, I like the way that they did that, and I'm gonna implement that. Or I like where they were going with that, but it didn't feel well executed.
Right.
I'm gonna take that.
And I think it's a lot different than just listening to an actual play. Like, I can pull things from actual play games and understanding like what their idea was, but when you're in the moment and you're playing it and you're seeing it and you're investing in it, it gives that better difference to you. We would so not yet. I know we were talking, we've got a couple projects in the future that we're getting ready to get ready for, I'm sure we'll see Hunter more. Hunter is a GUI member. He's part of the team. He's a part of the GUI cube, and he's a misfit now. I mean, he ran in one of our games last week or a couple weeks ago, and
I've been a misfit my whole life. I just hadn't played in your
hadn't played in my channel yet. Not knowing that I actually not saying this in the wrong way, but there was another Tabletop Misfits that was out there like 3 years before we had come up, but they have literally died off. Like, that was like, where'd they go? So we kind of took over that project now. So I don't. He does.
Chris, if I had to pick a favorite character voice, what would it be? That's a very hard question.
I have no idea.
I love the extremes. So I'm a big fan. One of my favorite characters that I've ever played as a character was a goblin child bard. And he was his name was Fuege Booyah. And he was very, very fun to play.
But he talked like this, and he would go around, and he was just very excited to be an adventurer, and he just wanted to be a great hero, like the people who adopted him when he was little, and so he would do that sort of stuff. And I like doing this voice a lot, and it's very fun.
But then I also like the other end of the spectrum, because I play another character that's down here, and it's just deep and it's gravelly, and I like this one a lot, and it hits up in the nose a lot, so it's got that resonating sound, and so I have fun with this. But I love the extreme ends of characters. I've also played a lot of characters that are just like somewhere in the middle. And so you end up somewhere in here, and it just sort of flows very easily. I listen to a lot of audiobooks and things, and so I start picking up on things. And then you get into a dwarven voice, and they're always fun to do as well. And so you're in these registers, and then you pull it up into your nose a little bit, and you get more into the Irish, which is also fun to do.
That was impressive.
Thank you. I am a dancing monkey.
That was
anyone
very well done.
Anyone who asks me to perform, I will happily oblige. I have one party trick, and it is my voice.
It is my voice. I'm gonna have to take some pointers on that. A lot of my stuff is done in writing and in descriptions, but to pull the voice into it would be a lot of fun.
They're super fun to once you start playing with it. There's a lot you can do. I recently started trying to challenge myself to do
specific
to
characters,
get better at specific characters. And so I've been playing with
almost like a Mrs. Doubtfire type. That's a fun voice to do.
But
I mean, you did a very good Bugs Bunny when we played, so that was let me rephrase that. You started with a Bugs Bunny, and then it turned into a redneck.
It very quickly became redneck because the other player was doing a country voice, and I used to live in Texas, and so it's immediately contagious to me.
Yeah, it was hilarious though, because you started very strong Bugs Bunny, and then you could hear the southern just accents immediately just roll into the talk.
Yeah,
Now, I'm from
it started in here, Doc, and it very quickly started getting a little bit deeper and going more into like this country, like country Jersey sort of vibe. Very, very quickly from the corruption of other voices.
yeah, it was a good time though. If you want
If you
to
haven't checked that out,
see,
that was a fun.
it was a fun
Uh,
episode. It's a one shot. It has nothing connecting any of the other stories. So if you want to just check out how we do things at the Misfits and kind of get a grasp of what we do, um, it's a good one to start with. But just to kind of give a thing, so you guys, just because I want to give you guys your plug and for especially for coming out here and hanging out with us tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Warlocks and Waffles is when?
10 a.m. on Thursdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on Thursdays.
Yep.
And then 1 p.m. Eastern on Mondays is Warlocks and Waffles. So we do morning RPG talk show. Right now we're in the process of finding some like guest co-hosts and stuff to come on and do some cool stuff with that. So I'll be live tomorrow talking about like packs and some of the stuff that I'm looking forward to doing on the channel and that sort of stuff. And then we have Hash Browns and Hooligans, which is our actual play, which is Monday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern. And they are very, very, very fun people to play with. I am probably one of the proudest things I have ever worked on was the casting of this show. It's probably the thing I am most proud of creating. Because the cast of this show is just a delight to run for.
Right.
They are so much fun. I've had a lot of people that have been like, how long has that cast been playing together? Because like they feel like they've been together for years. And like, well, they were like all together. I mean, I put them together for like a sample run, and then we did a couple of like world building episodes, and then they were live. And they haven't been playing for years. They've been playing for 2 months, sort of.
So a lot of your cast is brand new to D&D.
Well, all of them have played D&D, but they hadn't played together. So building the cast and assembling that group has been a ton of fun. I'm very, very proud of the people that we've pulled together for it.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, the little bit I got the chance to watch, they all seem extremely invested. They all seem excited to play. We might do another show here in the next couple of weeks of specifically getting a couple people, maybe 2 or 3 of us, and we'll do a roundtable on actual play gaming compared to home gaming, because it's very different. We want to give as much of an experience to show off what D&D really is, but at the same time there is a performance and there is an entertainment factor that has to be hit, otherwise you're not going to watch. I mean, it's accepted. Yeah, we know that
there's definitely like actual plays out there that like lose a level of the like enjoyment of the game in making it as high a quality as they can.
I mean, I think personally, and I hate to say this, I think Critical Role is stepping into that boundary. I think campaign 1 was very, very back in the table games, and then 2 and 3.
Campaign 1 definitely feels like a home game that is being broadcast. Yes.
Yeah, and then 2 became much more productive. And like I've read, there's a lot of scripted. Like a lot of it is scripting. A lot of it is bouncing ideas off of all the players. And I'm not going to say that you shouldn't do that. Truthfully, I believe you should every 3 to 5 episodes, or every 3 to 5 sessions that you play with your players, you need to be asking your players, well, what are you enjoying in the game? What are you not liking in the game? Because that's going to allow your players to have the best experience that they can have. Maybe, what did you think of this NPC? He's been around now 3 episodes, and do you like him? Is he bugging you? Like, what is it? Because then you can get those feels of, am I pulling my players in the direction that they want to be pulled in, or am I starting to narrow them into an area that they're not having fun anymore? And I don't ever want to feel that way with players, especially because you and I are in the same boat of, they're paying for me to do this
Right.
too. So
Yeah.
I want to make sure they're having a good, enjoyable time.
It also gives you as the GM an opportunity to be like, hey, here's this thing that's been happening a lot. Like if this is something that is very important for you guys to continue, that's fine, but it is actively making everything more difficult.
Right,
So, and
exactly.
I would prefer to move away from doing that thing.
Yeah.
That is yes, C17 are what we don't like. A spellcaster that doesn't cast spells. Yeah, a level 10 druid that you can cast the number of times they've wild shaped on one hand is not necessarily an effective adventurer.
Yeah, no. But yeah, this is a great conversation of just what you can do in a game and how you can make a game better. And it's really what we try to do here at Tavern Talks. My Wednesday show is nothing more than to bring amazing game masters and amazing content creators and people who are really out in the weeds building and creating new things for D&D and getting it out to the people, and also letting people unlearn tips and tricks to continue to build their own games. Because if you're just doing the same thing over and over again, the game's going to get boring. You're not going to learn anything new. And if that's what your players want, cool, you have an amazing table that's going to stick with you for life. But if that's not what they're wanting and they're sticking around with you because of the fact that you're the only GM around, maybe it's time for you to be the bigger person as a game master and be like, hey, well, how can I make your experience better? No matter if you're getting paid for it or not, you as a game master still kind of have an investment in this, because this is your world, this is your story, this is your production. No matter if it's never being seen, it's still your production. And then people will, and the best thing I have as a game master is when people are talking about my stories months and months later. Absolutely. Rather than getting those moments where everybody's like, oh, we had a good game, move on. We had a good game, move on. And then you get really, really crazy things like players coming back to you after 6-8 months of playing, and they said, hey, this scene of the game was amazing, so I put artwork into it. And I was like, whoa, that was a new one. Wasn't expecting that. One of our good friends, her character had died, and they did the artwork of another character holding that character in her arms.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah, no, it was my first. It was my first ever campaign homebrew that I did all myself, and I did not mean to kill the person, but the person decided that they were going to run straight up to a bone devil and zap it with a full-blown inflict wounds, and they rolled a crit damage for it, but the bone devil had not been damaged enough, so didn't kill it. And then right after that, the bone devil turned around and put the spine, the little stinger, straight through critical, and I hit him for like 96 points, and they were like, it was just instant death. I was like,
that's a moment that sticks with you.
Yeah,
I still have a very vivid memory of one of my buddy's characters. When I was a player in my first ever campaign, my buddy's character got stomped by a treant, who just like boom and just
boom, squish.
Flat. Like we were probably like level 3 or something in that, and did like 70 something points of damage, like just obliterated him in one hit.
Yeah, you can't really solve that. Like,
no, yeah, it was rough.
Yeah,
but I still remember that. And we raised that character from the dead at some point, I think. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. I don't remember the rest of his life as vividly as I remember him dying.
Yeah, but like I said, those are those stories though, because I haven't played that campaign in 2.5, 3 years now. So it's like, if I'm remembering those type of moments, those are the moments that my players bring up. Those are the things I want. Those are the types of moments I want to see show up as often as possible, because those make me know that I'm doing the right job. I actually threw it up in our channel. if our tech guy can do me a quick and dirty and throw that up on our channel real fast. It's the new image I just put up. On the Google Drive. Let's see here. Yep. So this will be our last little image. I'll pop it up there just for you guys to see it. This was a heart-wrenching moment, even for me to. And this has a lot of sentiment to me as well, because this was the first game that I played with my oldest son, and this was his first game of D&D. So he had to. He was a warlock who was the patron was a Balrog, and it was sending him around to random old ruined temples of other lesser devils that if he killed them, he could then take parts of that creature and turn it connected to his hexblade. And not knowing though that the Balrog had other plans and that he was just trying to slowly remove all of the obstacles for him to come into the world. They went up at the end to against a Knoll zealot of Enagu, and as they couldn't defeat him, the Balrog was like, throw the blade into the portal, and he was like, what's it going to do? He's like, I'll save you. And they didn't realize though that what he did is he threw it into the portal, it flipped polarity and pulled everyone into the first levels of hell. And then the game ended because a lot of our players had to go for military reasons, and that game never picked back up. But that is literally where the story ended. I was
wow.
Like, yeah, it was intense. But that's the image.
That
right
art
there.
is, that's intense.
Yeah,
I love the feather.
So she was our only healer. She was a divine sorcerer.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was the art was amazing.
That's beautiful.
And then he was of course a Minotaur barbarian, and that was her protector, which was her husband, which I just thought was such a cool artwork.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
But if you like artwork like that, our new project, every single guest we have and every single NPC that we have will have, let me rephrase it, every single character that has a player connected to it will have artwork in our next project, which I'm excited about. And that's all being done by our wonderful artist, Brina Luna. If you haven't checked her out, she's over on Twitch. She did all of our artwork for our one-shot charity event, and some of the artwork that she's producing right now for our NPCs are just, we're really excited about this upcoming project. So does anybody else have any final questions before we close out for the evening? Going once, going twice. No? Well, then it was a wonderful time having everybody here at the tavern, but this is last call. So before we go, Hunter, is there anything you'd like to say at the end?
Oh boy, put me on the spot. It is an honor to be on the show for episode 42 of Tavern Talks, mostly because that is the answer to life and everything.
Yeah.
If you guys are looking for more nonsense like what I have talked about tonight, check us out on Warlocks and Waffles. I will be live at 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow over on our channel. And if you want to check out an actual play that revolves around a bunch of nonsense people doing nonsense things with a little bit of like X-Men-y magic thrown in there, check out Hash Browns and Hooligans on Monday nights. We'll be back with that in a few weeks. We'll keep your eye on our socials for the announcement of us going back live with that.
Awesome. And of course, if you want to come hang out with us, every Wednesday at 9 p.m. we start Tavern Talks, where we bring new guests every week to talk about D&D and the crazy things that are coming up in the community. And then, of course, we have our actual play, which is on Sundays at 9 p.m., which we should be finishing our finale for this final arc, or for this last arc. And that will be coming up Sundays also at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until then, everybody clink your glasses together. The tavern is closed, and we will see you guys all next week. Bye.